Let me play a sad music. Lately, we hear increasingly people, okay, the sad music is not playing so good. Okay, it will play one day. So one of the problems lately we are facing is people complaining, "Oh my god, organic reach on social media is so low. Nobody sees my posts. Nobody interacts with me. I don't get likes. I don't get comments. I don't get shares." But it's social media all about posts and this kind of engagement. Don't you think that maybe there's other options that could be even more interesting and also profitable and also insightful than just posting and waiting for likes, comments, and shares? I believe we have more options. I believe that we can get way more from social media if we go further behind more than just posting. And today I have this amazing guest, Tim Lewis. I believe that he's also a huge fan of live streaming. I'm gonna ask him in a while. So I'm gonna get it from the basement. He's there. I think he's just finishing the cookie. So let's bring Tim. Hello.
Thank you for releasing me from the basement. It's
From the
interesting
dungeon.
way to call the waiting area at the bottom of the show.
So thank you so much, Tim. It's a pleasure. Okay, by the way, for those of you watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment sections. Also, join the conversation on Amazon, and from there you can get Tim's book. Okay, it's listed in the carousel. It's highlighted right now. I believe this could be a pretty interesting book for you because, as I mentioned, this for me it's pretty important. See social media besides posting and all this kind of stuff because I believe there's life besides posting and this like and engagement and reach thing. Tim, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I believe this will be an amazing conversation. One of the things I believe that both of us believe is that live streaming it's one of the best ways to networking through social media, but I believe that you will explain this better if you don't mind presenting yourself, and then let's talk a little bit.
Well, I'm Tim Lewis. I'm the author of Social Media Networking, which I think is the book you probably have down on the Amazon stream here. I'm also the host of Book Chat Live, which is an Amazon live show where we talk to people about their favourite books. And I'm also the author of 7 books as well, the last of which is Social Media Networking. The others were all fantasy and science fiction books. But the idea with social media networking was I interviewed 20 people about how they got success with social media. It was to try and actually find out about the positive side of social media because we hear so much about the negative side of social media, and to learn from people how they've used social media successfully. And as you say, live streaming is one of the approaches that works well. Um, so we can talk a bit about that, or we can talk about social media networking more generally, if you like.
I think we can discuss everything because we have time for that. And if we somehow skip some of the things, maybe we can go live in the future and
Well,
discuss
yeah.
that more. So one of the things, and I want to ask you this because this was one of the things I made as well when I started live streaming. One of the things I thought because I don't know when. By the way, when did you start it?
What, in life or
Live
live
streaming, live
streaming?
streaming.
Live streaming. I've been live streaming since the start of lockdown, actually, in so about 2020. I've been running a podcast, an audio podcast, for a few years. I was starting that in like 2017-ish, I think. But the first live stream I did as part of Oh No, Not Another Live Show it was called that because everybody was starting live stream during lockdown. It's like that show was all about me and two women in the US. We had an online dinner party, and the conversation was so good. I was like, "Why don't we start a live show?" So we started Oh No, Another Live Show, and we've been. Me and one of the ladies dropped out quite soon, but me and Christelle, who's the other co-host of the show, we've been doing that since 2020, I think, since the start of the lockdown, and we've interviewed 134 guests, I think, now on that show. And my other show is Book Chat Live, which is just on Amazon, and I've done about 25 shows on that. So I've done a lot of live streaming over the years.
Awesome, awesome. Because you just nailed one of the things that I believe it's great about live streaming is the chance to make these interviews or co-hosted shows. Because I started like this on Blab back in 2015.
I remember Blab.
I
Blab was great.
Yes. So I started, and one of the things that kind of stopped me a little bit at the beginning was I was missing people to go live with me.
Yeah.
So this was one of the things, and I believe that networking could start by this. So you started with these ladies, okay, and that's a great way. Can you kind of tell us more about, for instance, how did you start the getting guests to your live shows? Because this is, and which advantages you see on that? I was
Yeah.
about to say it, but I believe people are here to listen to you, not to listen to me.
Well, I mean, a lot of the book is not just about live streaming. There are lots of ways to get to know people. I think some of the stories might be included live streaming, but there are lots of people to get to ways to get to know people online using social media. And this has basically been the source of all my guests that I've acquired. My co-host invites some people on, but it's mainly me bringing the guests on. And these are typically people I've met online or at conferences or events. And you could say, well, if you met them at conferences, that's nothing to do with social media. But a lot of the time, the people I've met at conferences are people I've known on social media beforehand. And then it's easy to make that ask. It's like one story, a couple of stories in the book where I've interviewed people. They've got jobs via their connections they've got from social media. And there was this interesting fact that I found. The US Bureau of Statistics, for labor statistics, they did a survey, I think it was about, I don't know, sometime in the 2000s. And they found out that of every job advertised, for all new job creation in the US, 60%, only 60% of the people who got jobs weren't what they were advertised. So 40% of the jobs went to people the recruiter already knew. There was no interview process. There was no recruitment thing. It was just, I know Marco, I'm going to have him for this live streaming job. Of those other 60%, half, even though there was an interview process, half the recruiters gave the job to somebody they already knew. So how do you get to already know somebody? Well, one great way is social media. So now I know you. If I'm looking for a live streamer, it's like, Marco, you're going to be considered because I know you now from social media and because you've interviewed me on your show. Interviewing people is a great way to get to know them. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of times I've had guests on just because I wanted to get to know them better. Not necessarily because I'm expecting weird or wonderful gifts and great knowledge, but sometimes it's just some people are very nice and you want to get to know them. Way to get to know people is to interview them on a show like this. So that is one way of using social media to make connections. And coming back to what you were saying in your preamble at the start, posting is one thing that people do on social media. But there is so much value in interacting with people's posts, commenting, just reading people's content, just watching people's shows. It's like I see somebody's commented on the show. Commenting on people's live shows is a great way to make connection with people, especially if they're a lot higher up, because very few people do it. There was this obsession to begin with where everybody was posting, and it was all about posting because at the very beginning of social media, people weren't producing content. And there was this opportunity, but now there's as much opportunity in watching and interacting with other people's content as there is with producing your own. So that's something else to consider. And live shows are actually one of the best. Commenting regularly on people's live shows is one of the best ways to get to know somebody. Maybe somebody you would have no other way of getting connection with.
Absolutely. And I stress all the time, and this is kind of a struggle because people, and here in Portugal, we have this cultural problem. Okay, because sometimes, oh, I'm not commenting you because I'm making you important. I'm not. I'm not doing that. And as you mentioned, for me, and also, for instance, for those people, they are starting their content creation career, because at the beginning it's frightening. Okay, I think for me it was not because I didn't thought too much about it. It was like, okay, let me jump. Woohoo! There you go. I'm on the water.
Yeah.
But the thing is, sometimes we are too scared because we think that nobody will read what we are, or listen, whatever, what we are creating. We are afraid that we are wrong. We are afraid of everything. And I believe that this commenting logic could be a nice way to do this in a smoother way instead of our channels and get this feedback. Can you share something about this?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we like people who show us attention, especially on social media. And it's like we're expecting people to take time out of their life to read our content. People are more likely to read your content if you've read their content, and you've shown you've read their content by making good comments and interacting with it, rather than just click like. Even though click like is worth something, not very much, but clicking like is worth something. Like, so click like on the show, anybody who's watching it. We want clicks and likes. But yeah, if you show people that you care about them, they're more likely to care about your content. But there was too much of this broadcast mentality. Too many people considering social media like television, and it's not. It's not at all. It's a much more personal interaction, and you'd be surprised. Like some really big quotes people on social media, they don't have that much interaction really. They'll do a live stream and they might get a couple of hundred people watching, but they only get like 3 or 4 comments. And that's a great way to be able to connect with people, especially is on LinkedIn. You have so much information on the platform. So LinkedIn and Twitter especially, they give you a lot of information about people. So Twitter, you can see what everybody said in their Twitter conversations over the time. So you can, if you want to say about, I could search for Marco Novo on Twitter, and I'd probably find a lot of good and bad stuff, probably. But that's the thing. We've got this huge databases of information of the social media networks. And most people, if people actively use social media, then it's very easy to interact with them and make that first connection and then make a further connection. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have somebody comment on this show and then immediately go and try and sell you something. But if they keep watching your show every week or so, you might have them as a guest. You might be more willing to, if they've got something that you want to buy and they're trying to sell it to you, like some microphone or something, especially if they give you a discount. So that's the way that you make connections on social media. You have to put some effort in. You can't, the days of just posting memes or something, that can work. That can work for some people, but for most of us, we need to put the effort in and actually show interest in other people so that they show interest in us. That makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes all sense. And the thing is, I don't know about you, but I hear often, oh, go out of social media and work, or that person spends all the time on social media. That's why she or he doesn't get a job or a better job. And the thing is, this is one of the problems, is that people, they are in a wrong perspective, in the
Yeah.
wrong way on social media, because I believe that we will, at least we can learn a lot if you use properly social media, and with that we can also get pretty nice uh, works, jobs, or whatever. I can talk by myself.
Yeah.
So do you have kind of a recommendation how you should use properly social media, having in mind, okay, for instance, you want to get a better job, you want to get a job, or you want to improve your skills? What are you doing for that, for instance?
Well, what I'd recommend, based on people I interviewed and my own experience, I mean, I've got a few jobs and pieces of work from social media. You need to be systematic in what you do, but also general. That makes no sense whatsoever. But I'm trying to explain. So let's say you wanted to work in IBM. You wanted to be a software engineer. I don't know what your background is, but let's say you maybe you're working for a small company at the moment. You're doing something. You want to work in IBM. You can't necessarily say, like, if I want to work in IBM Lisbon and I want to work under this person, that is very hard to say. That's very hard to actually achieve, because you can find that person on LinkedIn, and then you can see what they may not have ever posted any content on social media or LinkedIn. They may never use it, or it may be their secretary or some intermediary is the person that does their social media for them. But if you say search for IBM Portugal, there probably is going to be somebody in Portugal who works for IBM who posts regular content, maybe has a live show, maybe has a podcast, maybe just posts LinkedIn articles. You can go and search that person and then start interacting with their content. And what you want to be is in the position where that person is looking for recruitment, or somebody comes to them and asks for recruitment, they think of you and like they offer you the job, and you don't have to worry about the interview process. So part of the thing is identifying the groups of people that you're interested in and showing them attention online, and also trying to demonstrate with your own content that hopefully they'll start reading, that you're qualified, you've got good ideas in terms of programming or whatever you're trying to get to do. So your content is all about credibility on your point, and making, because nobody wants to be the recruiter who hires somebody who's hopeless. But if you produce good blog content, you've produced live shows, you've done a lot of good stuff, you've shown online you can do it, that's half the battle. And that's what people, like, a lot of people think, oh yeah, content marketing is create. But the trouble is, a lot of people aren't seeing any of that because there's so much content online. So you need to go to the person, you need to communicate and show interest in the other person who's producing content, who's in the place you want to be, so that the next time that they're looking for a job, they think, oh, Marco's this guy I've connected with on LinkedIn. I like him. He's shown that he can do the job. So he's not going to embarrass me if I say, like, recommend him. It saves a lot of money for a company to pull somebody in without doing an interview process, because I've worked as a on the recruitment side in IT, and people don't like interviewing people if they can avoid it. If they know somebody who's a good candidate, they can say, oh, this person's written loads of blogs, he's done all these live shows, he's done all this stuff. That's what you need. But you can't really force it, and you can't say for one individual. You can't just go after, like, oh, Elon Musk. I want to go after Elon Musk. In fact, the lower down in the food chain that the person is, the better, really. And sometimes it can be that, because most companies have referral schemes for employees. So even if you know somebody at the level you want to get to be, they could recommend you to their boss if they've seen your stuff. So there's a lot to be said for this. I mean, I think people aren't doing it. I think actually, some ways, if you've got a quote proper job and you're looking for just the next job, social media is fantastically useful for that, because you can make those connections with people, the company you want to work with or the place you want to go, and build and work on those connections. And at the very worst, you probably got some new friends, and they may not be able to help you, but you may be able to say to them, "Look, I'm looking for a new job. Do you know if anybody in IBM Portugal?" And they say, "Well, I don't know IBM Portugal, but there's somebody in Brazil, IBM Brazil. I know somebody, and they're looking for a job." And you see how it can all work, and it's just having those connections within your industry and putting the time and effort in. And you have to be a little bit specific about it, I think, if you're looking for employment, and you can't expect it immediately. You can't be like, "I want a job now." If you're just posting, "I want a job" all the time, or "I want a job," that's going to do no good. You need to be building it up so that it will be at some random time. They'll be like, "Oh, by the way, somebody in IBM Brazil is looking for a job." And it's like, "Oh, we thought about you. Are you looking for a job?" And you can say, "Oh, yes, I am. Thank you," or whatever. Or maybe you say, "Well, I'm actually looking for something in Portugal." And then they're like, "Oh, well, we'll keep you in mind the next time we're hiring." So that's kind of the way that it works in terms of getting a job from social media.
Absolutely, absolutely, because this is important to kind of build this trust, build this
Yeah.
proximity as well. And also a thing that could be important is to get a feeling, because one of the things that I believe that happens often is that we kind of get this idea, this dream that it's working on that company, and sometimes it's real, the
Mm.
dream, but sometimes it's not as we expect. So this could be also a nice way for us to understand, is this really what I think, or it's not?
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. I mean, if you get in touch with all these people and then you find out that it's a terrible place to work, then maybe it's well, maybe change your ambition. But you at least you'll know without applying, and then keep applying and applying and applying. Because if you're applying for a job through an open interview process, as I say, you're up against all of the people that recruiter already knows. And chances are you'll lose out to somebody there. So you want to be that person they already know in the process beforehand, at the very least.
Absolutely, yes, because it's different. There's a saying here is, it's really important who you know or who
Yeah,
knows you,
yeah,
because if you want to stand out, this is really important. And I was thinking while you were talking, because we were talking mainly for people that already are in the market, but there's this huge slice of people that they are the students.
yeah.
And we hear often, "I don't get opportunities. Nobody gives me opportunities. I don't have experience. How can I get experience if I'm just finishing my course, my degree?" The thing is, usually they think this too late.
Mm,
They think that I need to finish first my course, and then my degree, whatever, my master degree, doesn't matter. And then I will go after opportunities. And the thing is, we are a little bit older, so we didn't have these platforms when we had the need to go after a job. We had
yeah.
newspapers mostly, mainly. But right now, at least we can see, for instance, I believe, if there's a need for a job, they will tell us what profile do they need, so we can in beforehand we can prepare ourselves to get uh, closer to that profile. And also we can understand what the people that are already doing this kind of things, what skills they have, what they are sharing, so we can learn with them. And at the same time, again, we can engage with them. Which recommendations could you give to those people that are right now studying, for instance, and so they can get better chances if when they finish within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, it's almost exactly the same. In fact, they're probably in a better position because, um, well, they're probably likely to have more time to do a lot of this stuff if they're studying. So the demonstrating their ability thing becomes more important. So they need to be producing their own content that shows that they can do the job, that they know about that industry that they do. But they've got the innate, like, I'm a student, I'm interested in your industry. Can you spare me a bit of time to just, or but again, you want to find people in that industry who are producing content and then start interacting with them, comment on their stuff, read their posts, and then message them and say, look, I'm a student. I really like your post on XYZ and live streaming on Amazon or whatever. Can you give me a bit of your time? Never assume that anybody's going to want to talk to you, because again, the point I was trying to make is that you can't pick one individual out and say this person will talk to you. Sometimes people just, they don't like you for whatever reason. But if you pick, like, find that whole group of people who are posting on social media and comment on all this stuff, one of them will probably respond and say, oh yeah, I can help you with this. And then hopefully you can get yourself into the position where, as I say, before they even start their graduate scheme, they're giving you a job. You'd be surprised if you know people beforehand, because the reason recruiters don't like employing students is that it comes back to this whole, we want experience. We don't want to seem incompetent by hiring somebody who has no experience and we have to spend all our time training. But if you've demonstrated to them and they're aware from social media that you can already do the job, you already know what to do, you're not going to be a time sunk for the recruiter in doing that job, then you're in a fantastic position, and they may well just offer you the job and not go through the interview process. So that's my advice. In fact, I think this is one of the best ways that social media has opened up things for, because there's always been the chicken and egg situation where they won't give you a job unless you've got experience, but the only way to get experience is to have a job. So you need to, this is where knowing somebody, and unless you do know, I mean, if you do know somebody from playing golf or you went to the same school with them, then use that. But most of us, that doesn't apply to. We have to make these connections on social media. That's where social media is great for. It's a way that you can make a connection with somebody you've got no other connection with at all. It's like, it's amazing in that regard. It has opened the whole world up in terms of connectivity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I believe, again, and let me tell you something. This happened with me back in the 90s. I was studying. Well, I was there.
Yeah, it was the 90s. Yeah.
So I was organizing some conferences there, a kind of a congress, and I was about to finish my course within 1 year, and I had some guests, some speakers, and some, they were from one of the companies that I was kind of excited to work with. And I do you have any internship program? And then he told me, look, if you want to work with us, just send me an email when it's time, so maybe I can help you. So this is kind of what we can do while we are studying this. Well, and today it's even easier because we have all these platforms, so people get to know us. But the thing is, if you don't stay in front of people, if you don't work,
Yeah.
if you don't show somehow what you are capable of, maybe it will be harder for you to get this dream job, whatever. So I believe this is truly important. And you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important with anything, and I always say, in some ways, marketing is a bit like trying to catch a cat. So if you've got a little cat walking along, if you just rush and try and grab it, it's going to run away, and you're not going to be able to catch it.
Absolutely.
You have to be a bit more subtle and slow, a slower approach so it gets used to you, and then you grab it by the end. And that's the same with job opportunities and the rest of it. You can't, it's very hard to say you met this person who you saw speaking at a conference. ideally, you want to find out if they're on social media, and if they're posting stuff regularly, that gives you a way of over time. So your first thing is just to introduce yourself so they know who you are. You don't really want to be reaching out at that stage unless you can't avoid it. And obviously in the 90s you had to, because you weren't going to see them again. But if they were posting on social media, then they'll remember. As long as you make the thing that they remember who you are, then the next time on social media they post something, you can be like, "Oh, that's great! And I enjoyed meeting you at 1990s con or whatever." um, and then you build up that relationship over time. So ideally, you don't want to be just going onto linked live shows and putting, "Can you give me a job?" for example. You have to go through you have to go slowly to begin with. You do need at some point to go and do the jump and try and grab the job. Well, you might not actually. Sometimes they will come to you beforehand, but yeah, probably you will need. But you don't want to be doing that right at the beginning. It's just you have to do it gradually and then build up. That's the ideal, and that's where if somebody's posting regularly on social media, you've got the opportunity, because you can just keep showing them attention and love.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is something that for me it's crucial. Like getting and we, for instance, I am as a marketing professional. We listen all the time. People having this awareness, being top of mind, and the thing is, sometimes people they just forget that if you don't show up, you couldn't be the top of
Yeah.
mind at all.
And you say it's hard if you're just posting content. It's hard to do it because, as I say, there's lots of advice where people say, keep posting, post this, post that, post that. And yeah, you need to do that, but you do need to you need to be a guest on other people's show, for example. You need to post you need to comment on other people's stuff. And ideally, I mean, it's time. The reason a lot of people don't comment on other people's content is that it's time consuming to consume it. But that is the advantage you have, especially for higher up people, because they'll do a live show and they might get no comments, even though they could be somebody with a follower, like 1 million followers on their blog or something like that. They could do a live show and there's only 20 people who watch it. And then you could be the person who comes in and says nice things about them and actually talks to them about the content, and they will then know who you are, especially if you keep doing it over and over and over again. So yeah, that's but you're right, you still need to have some content, but it's not as powerful as it used to be, just producing it and then just ignoring everybody who comments or does anything.
Absolutely. And this reminds me as well as other approach that we see often, which is those people that just reach out to us. For instance, they send a LinkedIn invitation, and you're already laughing. I think you know who I'm talking about. You accept, and this is kind of, they understand. You accept my connection. I'm gonna pitch you. You allowed me to do that.
Well, it's trying to grab the cat, and it's like when the cat's over there, and you're like, and it's like, well, you got no chance. Well, I mean, I say the reason why some people do this is that, as much as we hate it, it does work with a very small number of people. But the problem is, they're likely to be unhappy eventually, even if they do buy your stuff. B, you're already shut. You put a lot of people off if you just go immediately. You're trying to go in for the final sort of call with people. You have to be careful about it online, because if you receive like one of these LinkedIn pitches, you might block them, and then they can't contact you at all in the future, even if they change and actually start using proper business practices. So yeah, people need to be careful about how they pitch online.
This reminds me as well, and maybe you remind this. I'm sure you do. When we tend to go to these offline events and we see these people that are kind of business card throwers, okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing networking, and After that, do you remind any particular? No, but the thing is, they will remind me.
Yeah, well, the people who send you an email every 2 days saying like, "Oh yes, did you get my email about being interested in making garden furniture or something?" Something like totally irrelevant. I'm like, no, I just don't respond to them. Um, Talking about the business cut, there was somebody, I think it was in social media marketing world one year, and literally turned up, shoved his business card in my hand. It would say, "Great to meet you." And then looked on, took a photo of my badge, and then he sent me a letter through the post after the event. And I'm like, I remembered him because we had no interaction at all. He just gave me his business card, and I thought, this guy is wasting time sending all these personalized letters to people when he's not doing the first part properly, which is you have to have some sort of conversation. And there's so much bad advice about networking online, in terms of it comes from the whole sort of BNI and business networking world, where it is all just about what can I do for you, what can you do for me, and well, in some industries that's useful. For most industries, you have to have a connection with the person. You have to at least talk to them and try and make some sort of conversation, not just like, "Marco, business card. Here's my business card." Like, goodbye.
Look, I just came from a Congress and I just gave 1,000 business cards. I'm a successful man.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Because you have something in your book. And this is, I want you to talk about this because you have here in the third chapter, making important connections. And this is pretty interesting because, and I can talk by myself. I believe that you can talk by yourself as well. Is the fact that sometimes we meet people, okay, we don't think, okay, he's or she's a nice person, I like to talk, but we don't have this business intent in mind when we
yeah,
met them, but we keep talking, and suddenly, after 1 month, 1 year, whatever, it shows up an opportunity. So sometimes it's good being kind of a little bit more naive, or
yeah,
believe in our guts that, and I can talk by myself. For instance, I met, uh, you know her, Marisa
yeah,
Kali. Okay, I met her almost by accident. We had were at a live show. Well, it was a live networking show. Okay, and we talked, and after, and okay, she's nice. She's in love with live streaming as well. We kept talking, and after, I don't know, maybe 1 year after I met her, she came to me, Marco. We have this thing, and she gave me a huge business opportunity. And for instance, sometimes she calls me to work with her. So this is something really interesting as well. Not having this, okay, I have this business to do. Let me find someone. No,
mm,
sometimes it's good just to
yeah.
find these people that they have the same interests, or which we like. Okay, this is, don't you, what do you have to say about this?
Well, it's, I mean, because we were talking about jobs, and jobs are quite a specific thing. If you've got a job, you have to be targeted. But if you're just running a business where you have, especially a client-related business, there's a lot to be said for just networking with everybody, because people refer people. So, and that can work even if they do virtually the same thing. So I think Marissa probably does very similar to what you do career-wise in the
Absolutely,
live streaming
yes.
area. But
Yes.
people think like, oh, you don't want to talk to your competitors. And that's stupid because very often they will um, they will have too many clients coming in, or they have somebody for some reason they don't want to work with. It's in the wrong place. Like, so you're based in Portugal and Marissa's in Nashville. So if she has somebody who wants to work with a European person, it makes perfect sense to refer them to you. And that and it's like again, it's like that comes top of mind. Who is the Portuguese live streaming guru? Well, it's Marco. Well, I mean, you're
Really?
like if
Me?
somebody encounters me now and they're like, "Well, I want to do live streaming in Portugal," I'm going to think of you because I don't know anybody else who does live streaming in Portugal. So that's where having a business is great because you get the referral, and also it's good for you because you can then refer people to that person potentially. And a lot of the time, and that's a way of like building a relationship with somebody. So, because you may get asked, oh, like, do you know anybody who's written a social media networking book? We probably wouldn't, but, or anybody who's an expert on social media, and then you can refer them to me, and then I can refer them to you. And that's the way that it works with client side businesses a lot of the time. And if you sell really high value client services, you don't really need that many people to refer you to make a good money out of it. I mean, the number of people who are electricians and plumbers and other people who can work their entire lives just off being referred by somebody. So those relationships matter.
Absolutely. Yes. And while you were talking, I was thinking about something, and I need to ask you about this because there's another approach that we unfortunately we see, and this is getting more usual, is those bitter people that go and just criticize, and they don't build anything, they just kind of troll people. And again, and I believe this is something that we should have in mind when we are on social media, is that we know who says, but we don't know who reads, listen, or watches. So, for instance, let me give you an example. I'm watching a live show from you, and then I go there and criticize you, Tim. Why are you doing this? You're
Yeah.
really bad, whatever. And suddenly, I apply for a job, or I try to get a job with a friend of you that I don't know which that he or she is a friend of you. So, and because people, they are connected. For instance,
Mm,
he or she goes to my profile, and he sees that I'm connected with you, and he asks, "Do you know this guy? This guy? Oh my god, this guy is terrible. It's a troll." And then bye bye.
yeah.
What do you have to say? Because I believe that it's important for us to understand. Of course, we don't need to please everybody. This is not the right way to
Yeah.
do it. But if we don't see, okay, I don't need, for instance, I don't like what you're doing. I don't need to like. That's good, but I can live without being annoying, without being s- silly. Because the thing is, and this is really, I think people, they are taking more care of this finding people which are more in a team work perspective, that they give a nice environment while they are working. So this, the importance of being polite, about building, again, building and improving what people are saying, and getting a nice and insightful perspective instead of destroying everything. Because, as I mentioned, we know who wrote the things, but we don't know who are reading the things. Don't you think this
Mm.
is important as well to have in mind?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, something I've started telling people is you really have to pick your battles, so to speak. Um, just because you see something that upsets you on social media, you're almost certainly not worth responding to it because A, you're wasting your time, and B, as you say, it can have negative effects. There are some exceptions. Some people define their brand by being an advocate for a particular position or viewpoint. So, I mean, if somebody says something that is fundamental to your brand that you disagree with, then yeah, certainly you can respond. But you have to be aware that everybody is going to know that you have that position. Um, so, So I wouldn't necessarily say that everybody should just be like, let everybody say whatever they like and don't respond to anything, um, even if you disagree with it. But really, it's like, I mean, especially trolling people. But I mean, sometimes people do that just because that's their personality side. But yeah, in the main thing, you really don't want to be engaging with people negatively on social media if you can avoid it. Just let things go, because it's not worth your time. I mean, there are times when you do have to make a stand if it's to do with your fundamental values and your fundamental thing. But be aware that if you do make that stand, then everybody will know that. And then if you suddenly think, well, I don't really feel that way anymore, it's like, well,
Yep.
that's tough now. It's like you already told everybody that you think Marco's show is terrible and his mic's the wrong color or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think in general, yeah, try and avoid negativity on social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe, and the thing is, and I have this idea. Usually, when we have two people that they have opposite perspectives, they start a discussion, and by the end, they will keep their opinions. It's
Yeah,
pretty hard to change their mind, and the thing is, you will start kind of a fight. Lots of people will come with popcorns to watch the thing, and you don't get really nice from that. Hello, Joanna. How are you? Let me know if you have any questions, because right now I'm gonna ask about this. I think it's kind of the part 4 of this book, interesting about traveling. And I believe this is something that sometimes we don't have that in mind as well, but we have so powerful people tools by these days to kind of um, documenting our travels, our journeys. A, what do you think? What can we do in this chapter? And B, what can we get from this?
well, it's been a while since I wrote the book, but I still do it actually every time. Like I'm going on a trip to the US next month, and I'm meeting at least 4 people I've met off social media and where they are in the US. And ironically, this is an application. A woman I interviewed on the Oh No Another Live show last week, who's based in Bali. She works for Podbean, and I mentioned to her that I was going to Omaha in the US next month, and she says, "Oh, one of my colleagues works there. I'll introduce you." So the preface of that chapter is that as a single traveler traveling on my own to the US, I found it really useful to go and meet up with people who I'd already known on social media. It's coming back to the same thing. It's like, I mean, I've never really been systematic about it. I mean, you could go on to say Instagram and type hashtag Porto or something if you want. If you were going to Porto next month and you wanted somebody to connect with, you could go and find people in Porto and say, like, well, I'm coming to your city. Would you mind? You can just ask, like, would you recommend anywhere? And you'd be amazed how many people are willing to meet almost complete strangers who they only know off social media, as long as you're genuine about it. And that's another great thing about social media. Certainly, as a solo traveler, you can go to somewhere and meet somebody you've already met off social media. And I've done that so many times now. Really, I'm in the process of visiting all 50 states of the US, and I think probably at least half of those states I've known somebody I've met off social media and visited them when I've gone to the state. So it's just a fantastic way of making travel more interesting.
Well, it made me jealous because I'd love to be in the US. But actually, and for instance, this is something that sometimes, well, lately not as much because I'm not going to congresses as often as I used to do. But this was something that I made, like following the hashtag for a given event, for instance,
Yeah,
and then I I started interacting with people, and then we met in real life. Because, and this could be the last question, because time flies. We are because due to this whole COVID things, that things went from offline to online, and now they are kind of getting back again to offline again. And unfortunately, there's too many people that they put in fight uh, all the time, everything. And one of the fights is, oh, in real life it's the thing, no, online it's the thing. I believe that things could work together. Okay. um, so do you believe that it's important to blend properly this in real life with the online, so things could be even better?
Yes. I mean, I'm going to use a unpopular. I don't know if I'm allowed to use military analogies anymore, but social media is kind of like the bombing campaign that they do at the beginning. But you do need people on the ground, and that is somebody uh, meeting somebody in real life, because there is nothing quite like meeting somebody in real life, but it's a lot easier, especially if it's somebody that you know, because to some extent they're famous to you, if you've had some interaction with them in social media before. Because people, a number of times, some people, oh, you're that guy of Twitter I know. And actually, that is where a live show is fantastic, especially a video live show like this, because I used to have an audio podcast, audio only podcast, and I'd interview guests, and I'd go up to them, and they look like I'd meet them. I see them at a conference. I go up to them, and then I'd start talking, and they say, "Oh, we recognise your voice." But if you do a live show, they recognise what you look like as well. So there is a lot to be said for video interviewing in that regard.
Absolutely. And the funny thing, um, for instance, when I started my live show with guests, it was mainly with professionals from the Spanish speaking world. Okay. And the funny thing is that I got spotted in some congresses, not because of my look, but because of my laugh. Because one of the problems, they don't, people usually don't have the idea about alt. I'm 6'2". Okay, so I'm seated, so people, they think that I'm a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So when they meet me in real life, usually they spot me by my laughter.
Well, I'm 6'3", so
Okay,
I
so
won't have a problem. If you ever come to London, let me know, and we can meet up.
I will, absolutely, I will. And we have this. By the way, we have George. George, hello, my
Hi,
friend. Hope you're
George.
doing fine. We have this. This would be nice. It wouldn't be great for Amazon to host a live stream convention where we could all meet. And for instance, if they pay the flight, it
Oh,
would be
especially if I pay the flight. I mean, I said I'm always willing to drop a hat to go to a convention
And
or
by the way,
event.
thank you so much, James, for stopping by. So, if, well, if not if, because I'm, which three advices, because I don't like that perspective of one secret, one sauce, because
Yeah.
I believe that one itself, one alone doesn't work. Three kind of ingredients to be an effective networker on social media, Tim.
Ooh, well, um, I'd probably say this, and I've always said this: start on Twitter, because Twitter is still the most open platform. You could possibly start on LinkedIn if you really don't like Twitter. But in terms of open platform where people just talk about anybody's stuff, is Twitter. The second thing I would say is that control the notifications of your social media apps on your phones and elsewhere. You can set them up so that they don't send you notifications. Set up your own notifications. Go into something like your calendar app and say, 3 o'clock, I will check Twitter, or I will check this Twitter list, or 4 o'clock, I will check LinkedIn. Don't let those because the social media apps, especially Instagram and LinkedIn, they send you pointless updates about the most irrelevant stuff. It's like so and so posted about donuts or something. I was like, I don't care. So you need to
There's
manage the
another one.
notifications yourself.
There's one that for me it's even worse. It's TikTok.
Yeah,
TikTok sends me notifications about my followers.
yeah,
Like that person, it's following you, and she or he posted this, and I think, and
yeah. And the third point is get used to doing audio and video, and the only way is just to do it. It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling for most people to go in front of a camera. The only way you get over it is by just doing it. And the first 10, 15, 20, 100 shows you do will probably be terrible, but you will be a lot better at it. And you will also be better at being interviewed on other people's shows and doing other things if you've done it enough yourself. So now I can happily doing this. I'm not like spending 2 hours beforehand shaking, thinking, oh, I'm going to be on this live show. What am I going to say? And then sort of do it like this the entire live show because I've never done an interview, never talked to anybody on a live show before. So a large chunk of it is just doing it on the content side. But as I say, yeah, consider like who you want to be connected with. And the other thing we haven't talked about is communities. Communities are fantastic. They're all over the place. There's Twitter chats on Twitter. There are LinkedIn groups, but nobody really uses LinkedIn groups. And Facebook groups, especially. Like I did a joke at Cambridge Social Day that I said this other speaker was really into material, into metalwork or something like that. And you can find a group, you can find a Facebook group about anything. So if you're interested in a particular topic or you think your audience is going to be in a particular topic, you can be a member of a Facebook group about that topic and you will meet people there. And that's a fantastic way to find people. So yeah, I suppose that's my fourth bonus tip, giving you too much stuff.
extra one.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for that.
Yeah.
So, Tim, is there a new book on the way?
Probably not. I have an idea for a new book, which won't be about social media, which would be more a general life self-help book, actually. But I don't know when I'm going to get that done. Hopefully this year. I might even tell you what the title is going to be, which is "Everybody Else Is Useless Too." Be the title of the book. Well, I haven't written it yet, so it's the idea.
Well, pretty nice. Pretty nice. And this is related to this. Usually we have some people that say that it's others' fault, whatever. It's others.
Yeah.
So the thing is, most of the time we are the other.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I'm looking forward
yeah.
to your new book. Let me know when it's outside so we can.
That's on my head. Yeah. Yeah.
So if well, I will be there looking. Okay, I'll be stalking you somehow. So, but keep me posted because I would love to have you again and talk about it because I believe this is a really important topic. Okay, I don't know if you probably already read the book Fred Factor or Factor Fred.
Mm.
It's an amazing book. I will and it's about a mailman. Okay, that was the mailman because I believe, and this is something that I've been thinking about lately, that there's kind of this thing, this rush of being an entrepreneur, about being successful because you have a big car, a big house, lots of money. And what about the baker?
Yeah.
What about those people that are kind of bringing us the coffee at the coffee? I believe that we should stop a little bit and think about this kind because we are kind of putting like this You are an entrepreneur, you have a big car, you are important. You don't have them, you suck. I think we should rethink about this, because every work, every job, they are pretty important. Okay,
Yeah.
and we have here Gabe as well. We are
Yeah.
finishing. So just to finish, Tim, where can people find you? Because I believe they will.
I do
They
many a
should.
thing, but stoneandpress.com is probably the best place to find me. On Amazon, Book Chat Live is my show, and I'm actually doing a show this evening in about 4 hours' time, talking to Tim Hughes about his favourite books. Book Chat Live. I might even, if you're into books, I might even invite you on the show at some point, Marco. So be careful there. I also run the Oh No, Not Another Live show, which is live on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, and do that every Wednesday at 4 o'clock UK time. And yeah, everything else, Stone and Press is where my books and everything else is. So that's probably the best place to start.
Okay, and we have here Matthias. Thank you,
Thanks,
Marco and team.
Matthias.
Great content. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for stopping
Yeah.
by. Muchas gracias. So, Tim, thank you so much. It was a really nice conversation and insightful. And this is something that we should be aware of. We don't need to look pretty formal to provide insightful and to provide value. This is something that life teaches me as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you that stopped by today.
Thanks,
Okay,
viewers.
they just gave me one idea, because on Wednesdays we have this. I have this co-hosted live show, the amazing show, and some of the people, they are talking about meet and greet on Zoom. So probably we are kind of thinking about it. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. By the way, tomorrow it will be another episode of the amazing show.
Mm.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye bye. And thank you so much, Tim,
Bye.
for stopping by. Bye.